Hey guys, Sebastian here from Potzer Analytics. Today we're going to be talking all about material. We're going to go over the point values of each piece, how to evaluate whether or not something is a good trade, and some general rules of thumb on combinations of material and what's better than other combinations of material. So let's just get started. So first let's go over the value of each piece. Pawns are each worth 1 point. Knights and bishops are each 3 points. The rook is 5, and the queen is 9, and the king does not have any point value, or is said to have infinite point value. That's because you can't trade or lose your king. Now, it's really important to point out that these are the nominal point values of each piece. The true value of a piece depends on how active or involved it is in the game. And that's really worth repeating. The true value of a piece depends on how active it is. Some terminology that you might hear other chess players say: knights and bishops are called minor pieces, rooks and queens are called major pieces. Usually, if you hear somebody say a piece, like they're up a piece, usually they mean a knight or a bishop. Otherwise, they would say they're up a rook or up a queen. Sometimes in Bughouse, for example, you'll hear somebody say piece mates, and what they mean is any piece other than a pawn. So knight, bishop, rook, queen will get them checkmate. So sometimes piece mates means anything other than a pawn. A material advantage or disadvantage means one player has the total point value of material greater than the other person. So if you were to add up all the point values of one player's pieces, it would be greater than the other player's pieces. Sometimes you'll hear the exchange, like one player is up the exchange, meaning they got their opponent's rook in exchange for a minor piece, a knight or a bishop. So if a player is up the exchange, that means they got a rook for one of their minor pieces. You might also hear the bishop pair, and the bishop pair just means one player has both their bishops. So both the light color square bishop and the dark color square bishop. And the reason we call it the bishop pair is because the bishops work really well together, and they are much stronger than just a bishop and a knight. Always remember that the true value of a piece depends on its activity. Here's an example of a game where both players have equal material. So both players have the same number of pawns and they each have a knight. So materially, this game is even. However, white has its knight stuck in the corner, and both of the squares that the knight could go to are blocked by one of white's pawns. So the white knight can't move anywhere. And black has its knight free to roam around to attack white's squares. So even though materially this is an even game, essentially black is actually up a whole knight in this game. Another really common question players ask is, what's better, a knight or a bishop? And as we just saw, both knights and bishops are each worth 3 points, so they're equal in material value. However, some players have a real preference for knights or bishops. Famously, Tigran Petrosian really preferred his knights. He thought they were very tricky, and he liked to maneuver them to trick his opponent. Famously, Bobby Fischer was a huge supporter of bishops. He really preferred his bishops over his knights. So whichever one you prefer, it's really important that you understand which is better in whatever situation you're in. Even though you might prefer your knights, you could be playing a game where a bishop would be better, and so you need to know how to use a bishop in that scenario. So in general, knights are better in closed positions, and bishops are better in open positions. So this is really getting at the dynamic value of a piece, how a piece's value changes based on the situation. And let's look at this position over here. So obviously this is a made up example where somehow black was able to get himself 4 knights, but I just want to go through each one of these knights and evaluate the activity of each one of these knights. So starting with this knight on the left, the knight is able to attack 4 squares. Let's compare that with a knight on the same rank, but closer to the center. So this knight here is able to attack 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. So this knight here is attacking twice as many squares as this knight on the edge of the board. So in general, knights on the edge are weak. And I like to remember knights on the rim are dim. So this is to remind you, you want to keep your knights more centrally located. Now let's compare a knight on the 6th rank. So this knight here on e3, I called it the 6th rank because for black, it's the 6th rank moving forward. This knight is attacking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. So it's attacking the same number of squares. However, these squares that it's attacking are heavily deep inside the enemy territory, inside the white territory. So in general, a knight on the 6th rank is typically stronger than a rook. So that's my rule of thumb, is that a knight on the 6th is stronger than a rook. So if you're trying to improve the value of one of your knights, you want to find a way to push it up as close as possible. However, you get diminishing returns. So this knight here on the 7th rank is attacking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So this is less than the knight on the 6th rank. So you get diminishing returns where a knight on the 6th is optimal, but pushing it forward decreases its value. So just remember from this that number 1, knights on the rim are dim, and number 2, a knight on the 6th is stronger than a rook. Let's look at a couple real examples. Here it's white to move, and white chooses to play bishop takes f7. Black captures back with his rook, white takes back with their knight, and then black takes the knight. So overall, the full trade for that sequence was white traded a knight and a bishop for black's rook and a pawn. So all the way back here, it was white's knight and bishop for black's rook and a pawn. So on paper, this is an even trade, point value wise. White's 6 points for black's 6 points. However, in practice, usually 2 active pieces are better than a rook and a pawn. So in this case, white probably should not have taken this trade here and instead played something different. So in general, 2 active pieces are better than a rook and a pawn. Another common trade question is whether or not 2 rooks are better than a queen. So here in this position, white has the option to take black's rook, check, and when black captures back, white will capture back with their rook, thus trading white's queen for black's 2 rooks. And on paper, the 2 rooks are a higher value than the queen. However, in practice, a lot of players, in fact, most players, are afraid of trading their queen for 2 rooks. So here in the game, white actually captured, black captured back, and white captured back. And the truth is, it all depends on how active the pieces are. If the rooks are able to coordinate and be more active than the queen, then the rooks will win. But if the rooks are unable to coordinate with each other because of maybe the pawn structure is getting in the way of stopping them from coordinating, or the queen is just able to be really active and create targets, then the queen will be stronger. So in practice, usually players choose to keep their queen. However, I would highly encourage you that when you see this 2 rooks for a queen option, you take it and then fight to get your rooks active. Another example of piece activity. Here it's white to move. White has the bishop pair, and black has a rook and 2 pawns to compare. So on paper, white has these 2 bishops plus the pawn is 7 points. Black has 5, 6, 7, 8 points. So on paper, black is winning. However, in practice, the bishop pair is said to have 7 or 8 points. I always think of the bishop pair as a temporary 8 points. And then if you lose one of your bishops, the other bishop goes back down to a regular 3 points. So in this case, white has the bishop pair for 8 points, plus 1 is 9. So I would actually say that white is winning this game. And to demonstrate how powerful the bishop pair is, we're just going to play this out. So white plays his pawn to h6. And the reason the bishop pair is strong is because they work together to protect both color squares of the board. And basically, white is going to use his bishop to protect the light square, and then he's going to use his other bishop to protect the dark square. So they work together really well. Black plays rook h4, attacking the bishop. White moves. Black gets his pawn going. Now white is preparing the way for his pawn. Check. King moves, trying to skewer the two bishops. White doesn't fall for it, pushes the pawn. Now if black chooses to take the bishop, white will promote to a queen. Black plays h4. Now black is clearing the way for that pawn promotion. Black is running with the pawn. White promotes. Rook takes, bishop takes. And even if black tries to promote, the white bishop can run back to the other side and capture. So in general, my rule of thumb is the bishop pair is a temporary 8 points. So that's stronger than a rook and 2 pawns. Last example here is 2 pawns on the 6th rank. So this position is black to move, and black plays d3. So black has 2 connected passed pawns on the 6th rank. And my rule of thumb is 2 pawns on the 6th are stronger than a rook. And that's because the rook by itself cannot stop both of these pawns from promoting. One of them is going to promote. So if white tries to stop the pawns, black will just press forward. And now even if he runs out, black will still promote to a queen. So rule of thumb is 2 pawns on the 6th are stronger than a rook. So to recap our dynamic value rules of thumb, knights are better than bishops in closed positions. Bishops are better than knights in open positions. 2 active pieces are better than a rook and a pawn. So an active knight and a bishop are better than a rook and a pawn. A knight on the 6th is stronger than a rook. 2 connected passed pawns are stronger than a rook. And lastly, the bishop pair is a temporary 8 points. So that's it for our material overview. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to like and subscribe for free access to all of our videos and studies on Lichess. I'll see you guys in our next video.